Episode 166, Operating from Abundance with Your Adult Children with Brooke Oniki.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
We all have dreams and expectations of the relationships we will have with our children when they become adults. But far too often they don't follow the script we have for those dreams, and we find ourselves feeling like the relationships we have with them are out of control and lacking in so many ways. Coach Brooke Oniki is on the podcast today to share how the relationships we have with our adult children can be abundant, full, and better than we ever dreamed in the first place. We just have to relax and be patient. We have to have faith in the relationship we built with them when they lived with us. This is a very tender episode, and as Heather will say, Brooke has a calming effect in the way she talks and presents herself that you come away feeling like everything is going to be just fine. And it truly is. If you want to develop and grow a great relationship with your adult children, be sure to reach out to Brooke and have her work with you. Please enjoy this episode.
Hey, everybody. Welcome today to the podcast. I am joined by Coach Brooke Oniki today. Hey, Brooke, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. Have you been with me? I'm trying to remember. I feel like you've been on a podcast with me before, but maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
One.
Yes. That's what I thought. I'm like, you've been on here with me before. Well, people listening today may not have heard that episode. So if you could introduce yourself again, that would be great, and let them know who you are, a little bit of what you do and how you got to what you do. That would be awesome.
So last time I was on, we talked about horizontal and vertical relationships with your children. And so that's my niche, is I work with mothers who are transitioning into being parents to adult children. And that's a tough transition for a lot of women. Mm-hmm. And so I work with people who are trying to figure out how to love them and kind of let go of them and not have such a strong agenda for how things are supposed to be and how they're supposed to turn out. And the more they can loosen up their grip on how they thought it should be, the better relationships they tend to have with their kids, the easier they are to be around. And it just makes their life more free as well, to start looking for the gifts that they have to share and the things that they can do, because they're not quite as entrenched in getting all their validation from their kids. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does. I'm in that phase of my life, where I have one child left at home and 3 that are out. And it is just kind of, I've been so grateful that I have been able to meet with so many coaches and learn so many things, because I think it has made that transition a lot easier for me as I watch some other people. I mean, I've certainly have my struggles and my trials, but I think that it has made that transition a lot easier.
Yeah, I think coaching really changed it for me as well, because then I started thinking, okay, I have probably 40 years to live. Like, what do I want to contribute in the world? And I certainly want to be a good mother and be interested in my kids' lives. But as I grow in my own life and they grow in theirs, like, we have more to talk about, right? Because we're all learning and growing and becoming. And I always make the joke of, I don't want to be at home ironing their old clothes, wishing they'd come see me. I never ironed their clothes when
I was
they
just
lived
going to
with
say,
me, so
wait, I never ironed.
Neither did I, but that's the image I get, right? Of that idea of, like, I wish they'd come and visit me, or right. And I just think the more we're enjoying our lives and having fun, like, the more fun it is when we're all together, and I can enjoy them when they're here, and I can be happy when they're gone too, because I have lots of things that are making my life rich and full. And so I don't have to put so much pressure on them to make me happy and make me feel good about who I am and what I'm doing, because I'm living a life of my own as well.
Yeah. Well, and that certainly comes from two things, right? Like the tools that you've learned from coaching has helped you to reframe your like who you are and what you want to do in life, but also being a coach has given you the opportunity to fill a space as well. So I think
Right.
it's like a twofold thing there that has
Yeah.
been awesome. Okay,
And
so
I know I'm not doing it perfectly right. And I keep working on that and being the kind of mom I want to be to them. And we'll keep making mistakes and circling back around and trying again. And
yeah.
so I'm in no way a professional at this, at being the ideal mother in this transition, but I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot from my kids, and I've learned a lot from my clients. It's really beautiful to watch them change relationships that are meaningful to them, and it's humbling to walk beside them in that journey.
Yeah. Well, and what a gift it is for your kids to for you to like know that you are making mistakes. And I'm sure like you probably try to be vocal with that as well. Hey, I'm not doing this right. I'm not, I mean, perfectly for helping them to see that that's going to be what happens in their life too. You're being an example of what real life truly is. We make mistakes, we pick ourselves up, we just make adjustments and we keep moving forward. And you're showing them how to do that as well.
Yeah. Well, we're trying. So
Yeah.
that's good. So
That's all
today
we
I
can hope
wanted to
for.
talk to you about operating from abundance rather than the scarcity in our
Mhm.
relationships with our adult children. And I just thought I'd share you lots of examples of things I've learned from clients and things I've learned from my own life about how to do that better.
I
Um,
love it.
so the first thing is to trust the relationship that you've developed so far. So I had a client come to me whose son got married and he moved to Colorado to live with the fiance's family until they got married. And my client was so worried. Like, everybody says that boys just go with the girl and you never see him again. And he's their only son. And she was just really concerned about how how this was going to affect their relationship
Mhm.
with with him. And we spent a lot of time like talking about the trust that she'd built in that relationship. He loved his siblings. He was very close to her and very close to her husband. And we just spent time thinking like, how can I trust that relationship that we will still matter to him? And and I can believe that it will all work out okay. And I can also believe that part of her problem was like, he's not going to live by us. He's going to live by them. And she already had a daughter get married who does live by them. And so she's like, and I had this vision that they'd all live next to me and we'd all, right. And because we create these visions in our minds, right. And so
Yep.
then when it's not turning out exactly right, we're like, you're ruining it, right. Like you're ruining the plan. But as she was able to let go of like, maybe the plan's just going to look different than I thought it would look. And I remember she came on a call one day and she said, my new thought that I'm going to foster is we're going to learn to love Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, we'll just visit them there and we'll get to see how much fun it is to be there. And, and we're going to love what they love and we're going to see what they're enjoying there. And we're just going to make that a place that we love to go instead of being so frustrated that, no, you were supposed to be my neighbor. Right. Like she started loosening her grip on the vision that she had
Mhm.
and trusting that like they'll come when they can and we'll go when we can. And I don't need you to be my next door neighbor in order to know that you love me.
Mm. Well, and how beautiful that is because not only is that enriching the relationship with her son, but it's also opening her up to a whole lot of new experiences and being open to experiencing life and adventure in a different place than she ever thought that she might, not spend any time in. So I think it just doesn't keep us so limited. It opens up so many things for us and we can have a different perspective on it.
Right. And of course, there's some clean pain that we have to deal with in the beginning when the expectation we had is unmet, right? And so we're going to feel some clean pain. But the dirty pain is like, he's never going to come back. He doesn't love us anymore. He's going to love her family more than us, right? That's the pain that keeps us stuck and not able to trust in that relationship, right? But if I can trust, like, I know he loves us and I know that he's going to make time for us when he can. And even when there are times when he can't come, I don't have to think that means he doesn't love me, right? It just means that he has other things that he needs to take care of. He's got to take care of his finances and of his new and growing profession, and right? Like, I don't have to make these things mean that they don't care about me. And that seems to be a place we tend to want to go. And so when I can just redirect my brain and go, well, maybe we can go more there, right? I can be open to having this be different than I thought it was, right? If I can let go of the story I'm telling myself that's making me feel stuck in my disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
And another example from another client, her child got married, and I believe that marriage relationship was way more difficult than he had bargained for. And he kind of closed off against his family for a while. And so when I would talk to the mom, my client, she would just say, like, we've been so close to him, and all of a sudden it just seems like he's not calling very much. And when we do any kind of FaceTime, she never comes on the call. We don't feel like she likes us. She just had all of this stuff that she was feeling really worried about. And so again, we went back to, like, can you trust the relationship that you have built with him? And not burn down the bridge right now when he's going through something hard, because there was lots of evidence that it was challenging. And so we just decided her focus was going to be, I'm going to be a soft place to land. And when he gets to a place in his marriage that things are functioning more, then he knows we are right here. Right? We haven't spent a bunch of time going, well, he didn't even call us his first year of marriage, or right? We haven't made a big long list of all the ways that he has hurt our feelings, right? We are trusting that he's trying to figure out something that he's never dealt with before. And if she could stay in a soft place to land, when he was ready, when he resurfaced, then they could just be in that loving relationship again, right? She hasn't already on, well, wait a second, what about all these 2 years when you haven't reached out and you haven't cared about us, right? She wasn't making a big long list of all the ways that he had mistreated her. She just trusted that when he got to a place where he was functioning and feeling safe, of course he was going to reach out again. And he knew that they loved him no matter what. And I said, it's such a compliment to you that he knows that you'll be here, but he's got to fix what's right at hand for right now. And sure enough, that is exactly what happened. Within a couple of years, they had figured out their marriage dynamic and were a lot more, just in a lot better place. And then he was ready to, like, bring the family back in. But had she been angry and hurt, it would have been really hard for him to do that.
Yeah, just listening to your talk, listening to you share those experiences, you have just this calm manner. Like, I feel extra calm talking to you now too. Like, any frustration that I had before, it wasn't frustrated, but I just feel so calm now speaking with you, and I can see how just even that influence would be so wonderful for your clients. And I'm also remembering something that I'm pretty sure you said on the last podcast episode when we were talking to each other. You said something about, as parents, we want our kids to love us the same way that we love them. We want them to give us the same attention that we want to give them. And that's never going to be, because we've loved them and served them differently than they've ever done for us. Am I correct? Was that something
we love forward?
Yes,
right?
that's what
They
it
will love their
was.
kids like we love them, but they don't
Yes.
really love us the same way.
Yeah. That just came to my mind when you were speaking there, because first of all, that has stuck with me ever since you said that. Like, that's something I have thought a lot about. And also, just as we continue to love forward, right, then it opens up for them the opportunity to love forward as well, like you said. Like he was able to take care of this relationship in his marriage, and had he always be having to look back and try to make somebody else feel better. Like I don't know about you, but I can only focus on like one thing at a time a lot of times. And if I have to try to separate my affections and my attentions, it gets really hard. But if there's, if mom's demanding something of me, it will be very hard to give
Yeah.
elsewhere as well.
Yeah. And another sort of trusting in the relationship, when our oldest son got married, he married a girl. She's a really, I don't know if you call her famous. I think she's pretty famous. She's a blogger, a food blogger,
Oh,
and
okay.
she has like she just reached over 1 million followers on
Oh my goodness. Can
TikTok.
you tell us who she
And
is?
yes, The Palatable Life.
Oh,
Mallory
okay.
Oniki, The Palatable Life. And so she does a
I
lot
have
of,
heard of her, and I'm sorry, but like when I heard her name one time, I'm like, I wonder if she's related to Brooke. I thought, no, that would be too small of a world if she's related to Brooke. But you're the only Oniki I know. So
I know there are
anyway,
only like 10 in the whole United States. There's hardly, and when we know all of them, 8 of them.
well, sorry for that, but I'm actually kind of like, I'm happy to hear that because I thought, oh, maybe.
So do you follow her?
I don't follow her, but I happened to see something one time. Somebody else had reposted something of hers, and I thought,
Uh,
oh, I know that last name. I know Brooke, but surely they're not related. So, but now I will
right.
have to go follow her because I know that you're related.
So she makes beautiful food. She's really famous for her cookies, but she's also
Mhm.
really healthy and she makes lots of bowls and lots of really good things with vegetables and she makes really good dressings. And so she does lots of content creation, lots of recipe
Okay.
creation. And anyway, she's very talented. And her family they're also really good at making food and they like really nice restaurants. And anyway, they're just really good at those kinds of things. And so when they started dating, I started feeling like, oh no, like he's just gonna want to be at their house. He's just gonna want to be with them because they're so amazing. And when I started thinking that, it made it like me to feel a lot of pressure, like pressure to be better at cooking for her. Like I didn't ever want to cook for her, even though she never ever said a word about my cooking or right. But I just felt all of this pressure, like, I don't really, or we can't be exciting enough or fun enough, or like I just felt a lot of pressure that we were supposed to be way more amazing than I felt like we could be. And so that was a real scarce place for me to be, right? It made it
Hmm.
so I didn't really want him to come because it was too much pressure. And I
Yeah.
thought, I don't want that to be the case. And so I just really coached myself on like, there is enough love to go around. It's okay. I want Mallory to love. She has amazing parents. I love them. And I want her to be close to them. And I want Emmy, our granddaughter, to have 2 sets of grandparents that really, really love her and care about her. And I want Connor, my son, to be influenced by the Joneses. And I want him to feel loved by them. Right. And we are also fun and great. And I want them to come and enjoy being with us, but I don't have to be different than I am when they come. I don't have to create some, right? Like we can just have a good time being ourselves when they're here. And we can let Mallory cook for us sometimes because she is happy to do that and she makes good food. And I can make things that Connor liked when he was little. He still really likes some of the things that I make, and it's fun for him to come and eat those things, right? So I could just start believing that it's okay that they can love the Joneses and they can love the Onikis. There is enough room for all of us.
Mm.
When I was more abundant with my thinking, then it was more fun to have them come because I didn't feel so, and I still have to work at the cooking for her thing. Like it takes effort for me because she really is incredibly talented. But I've also become more abundant in thinking like she can teach me things, right? Like we eat differently because of our experience with having her in our family. She's taught us a lot of things. And I appreciate that she's so willing and generous to share all of those things with us. When he graduated, we went to Boston for his graduation from law school, and she cooked the whole vacation. We went to Cape Cod and she organized all the food and we helped her, but she did all of that for us. And so I, rather than being like, see it as some competitive thing, like Can't we just join people's strengths and enjoy them?
Mm-hmm.
But it takes some effort, right? Not to go into that fear-based place, right? And I also had to trust in that relationship that we had with Connor. I knew he loved us and we loved him, and his sisters love him so much, right? And I didn't need to think, oh, he won't care about us now. Like, it's just more people to care about.
Yeah. Isn't it so fascinating? And I'd say this all the time, but it just continues to be fascinating to me that we are so good at giving airtime in our brains to the scarcity things, the things that are just fearful and from a place of lack, and that we're not so willing to give airtime to the place of abundance. And I just keep trying to remind myself, if I'm going to give airtime to this the space of scarcity, I have to give at least equal, if not more, airtime to the space of abundance. It's a little bit harder to do that, to think of those things, but that's also actually the more likely place that we're going to. I mean, we always think it's most likely that the negative things are going to happen, but in all honesty, it's most likely the abundant things are what are going to happen. And if we never make space for them, they will never happen. So I just, our brains are so crazy like that.
Well, and our brains naturally go to the scarcity,
Yeah.
but we can train them to be abundant, because the questions we ask our brain, of course, it will try to come up with solutions. Like, how has my son shown that he loves being in our family? Like, what are some evidences of that, right? Like, ever since they've been married, they call regularly on Sundays, just because they lived away when they moved to Massachusetts, and they would reach out and say, what time are people free? Like just notice the efforts that they're making to be close. And I would talk to my daughters, and they're like, they called this week, or I talked to him. And even like, I have a daughter on a mission right now, and she spends time talking to us, but she calls all of her siblings. Like, there's plenty of evidence that there's enough love to go around. And if I think, well, oh, she called them this week and she didn't call me, like, I don't need to make that into something scarce. I can just think, oh, I'm so glad that she has those kind of relationships with her sisters and her brother and her sister-in-law and her brother-in-law, that she wants to have those ties with them. And so we just have to be more aware, like, wait a minute, push back on the scarce thoughts and go, but look, there's also lots of evidence that there's goodness and there's love here.
Yeah. We just got to be more abundant on the abundant thoughts in our life, to be honest.
So another thing, so trust in the relationship is the first thing. And then another one is to not be in a hurry in the relationship. So as our kids age and they go away from home, sometimes we're in a hurry to, like, okay, now I want to be close to them as an adult or whatever, or I want to be really close to my new son-in-law or my new daughter-in-law. And we just have to remember that these relationships take a little time to develop. So one of the things that helps me is just, my go-to thought is, this is age appropriate behavior. Like, when I was 18, I wasn't thinking, I wonder how my mom's doing. I wonder if this is hard for her that I left home, right? I'm not thinking to call her and see how she's doing, right? Yeah. And so I just have to remind myself, like, I don't need to be worried about that. It's totally fine. And I've noticed as they get married, then and even one of my daughters that's not married is still really attentive to us. But it seems like sometimes as they get married, then the family becomes more central again, and less like their friends.
Yeah.
The less importance on their friends. But I just need to remember, like, as I'm developing a relationship with I have a new son-in-law that we got just this summer, and my daughter-in-law has been in our family for 5.5 years now, that over time that relationship has gotten stronger, and we've had more interaction, more vacations together, more time together. And over time, those things have grown and evolved, but they didn't happen overnight, right? And I think sometimes we're in a hurry to make everybody really close, right? And I think the better thing is to provide opportunities for those relationships to grow and then allow them to happen. I just always remember when I got married, I wasn't thinking, I wonder how my mother-in-law is doing. I wonder if this is hard for her, for me to marry her only son.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that you used age appropriate, because that's a lot easier for me to think back and think, yeah, when my 2-year-olds were doing this, I wasn't like all in fits. I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty typical for a 2-year-old. I mean, I was in fits because it was frustrating, but I also was like, yeah, they're two. This is what they're going to do. And the same with my teenagers. Yeah, this is totally age appropriate. I think that that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, and over time, as I am just like cultivating what I want to do, right? If I want to talk to them, I'm going to reach out more and call more. And like with my kids, I'll say to them, "Would you like me to call you more?" Because I don't call them a ton.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "No, actually," because usually when you call, I'm like busy. Like I'll just call you when I'm walking home from school, or you
Yeah.
know. And so we just have discussions about it because I don't want them to feel like they have these needs that I'm not meeting. Like if there are things that
Right.
they would like me to do, I'd like to try to meet their needs if I can. I can't always,
Yeah.
right? But then I also think as they age, we can create new traditions that deal with like, okay, now we're older. What are some things we can do? Like one of my friends has a girls' day every month with her daughter and her daughter-in-law, and they go to lunch, and sometimes they go to a movie or they shop somewhere or get a pedicure. And she just likes having a girls' day once a month with her daughter and daughter-in-law. And I don't do that, but I think that's a tradition that they have started. And
Mm-hmm.
one tradition we just decided to start was when we're all together with our kids, sometimes they talk about stuff we don't know very much about. Like they'll talk about Survivor episodes. They've watched all Survivor, right? Or F1, they watched F1, the car
Oh,
stuff.
the
And
Formula
I
One. Yeah.
don't know Formula 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
F1, yeah, Formula 1. And I don't know anything about it, obviously.
I don't either. I've just heard people talk about it because of the stuff in Vegas when they were doing the Formula One
Yeah,
down
and so
there.
I ask them
Yeah.
some questions and stuff, but I don't actually probably am not. I might watch some Survivor episodes. Maybe we'd watch a season or whatever, but I'm not always involved in those conversations. And so I can either feel like, oh, we're distant and we don't have anything to talk about, or I can just decide I'm glad that they like all the same stuff and I can ask questions and try to be involved. And I can do I my husband and I talked about it and said, well, what if we just started inviting them to dinner like in couples? And we'll just go to dinner every couple of weeks with one of the couples and it will just be the four of us. So we just decided this at Christmas. So we did our first one last weekend with my daughter and new son-in-law, and we had such a great time with them. And it was so fun.
Fun.
They're in school. And so we just talked about the classes they were taking and the ones that they liked. And my son-in-law is taking a meditation class, and we talked about that and why that was interesting and what he was learning from it. And anyway, we just had such a great visit. So it's not like they don't want to talk to us, but in those groups, it tends to turn towards stuff that they're all doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a more abundant attitude is like, so how can I create connections with them rather than thinking, oh, all is lost? Like, we're so
Yeah.
distant, right? Someone told me recently the generation gap between our kids and us is greater than any gap there's ever been because of technology, that they grew up with technology and we didn't. And so it causes us to be in different realms.
Different
And
realms.
and we
Yeah.
can wring our hands about it, or we can just decide where are the ways that we do connect or could connect and then make those kind of efforts, which I think
Mhm.
is more abundant types of problem solving.
Right.
Um, Another thing that we've just done, and we've done this now for about 4 or 5 years, is we do bingo on Christmas Eve, or sometimes it's on the 23rd. And I just get like, I don't know, about 15 to 20 presents that are pretty universal
Mm-hmm.
and wrap them all up. And then we play bingo and they get to pick a prize if they get bingo. And then the next person who gets bingo can steal that one or pick another one. And it takes a couple of hours and they love it. It's just so fun. We never did that when they were little, but it's something a neighbor of mine did. And so it's just like we're trying to create some new traditions that are fun and new and fresh and feel like they connect with them, right?
Yeah.
As adults, like it's, and I have another friend who does that same thing, but they do like packages, like a date package. And so everybody gets one, but those are the bingo prizes are a date package in the area.
So fun.
Um, Another thing that I've done to try to create connection, I've done this for years, but on my birthday, the week of Brooke Fest, I go and spend time with each one of my kids individually and my daughter-in-law and my son-in-law. So now it takes is usually more like a month because I do a few a week, but we'll go on a walk or we'll go out to eat. But I just spend time with them one to one because that is like a treat for me.
Mm.
And then I know at least in the month of November, I'm going to have some one-to-one time with each of them. And I try to do more of that during the year, but that's a really
Yeah.
for sure one that I do. But those are some new traditions that we've created that I think have helped me feel connected to them and allowed me to express my love and interest in who they are and the lives that they are creating. Do you have any questions about that?
No, I love it. I'm just sitting here thinking about your different ideas and I'm glad you're sharing them with us. So yeah, don't have any
Yeah.
questions.
So another thing that I see with my clients is when their kids aren't doing what they think they should be doing, like church wise,
Mm,
or not valuing the things that they grew up
right.
valuing, the things they taught them to value, even though maybe they still go to church, but they're not, I don't know, they got a tattoo or
Right.
they do stuff on Sunday they don't think they should be doing or whatever. You know,
Right.
we have a list of things that this is
Yep.
not exactly how I taught you kind of
Hmm.
things. And so one of the things that I try to help people do is to drop their manuals of how it's supposed to be. So I have one client just recently. So one of her daughters moved away from they live in the Midwest and they live on a farm and she grew up, you know, with her cousins and her grandparents. And so they were all nearby. And then when they grew up, some of her siblings, their kids have all stayed there. And, but her kids, one of them has chosen to leave. One of them's about an hour away, but one of them moved several states away. And she came to me and just said, and my main thought is, I'm not going to have what my parents had. And my grandkids aren't going to be nearby me. And it just makes her so sad, right? And when we operate from that space, then we try to be, I don't know, we passive aggressively try to
Yes.
control our family, right? Like make comments about their choices and right. And then we're even less fun to be around because we're so needy. And when we were on this call talking about this, she just had this light bulb moment and she said, "Oh, this is just like my dogs." She said, "I have a dog named Nelson, and you can pet him and he's fine, or you don't pet him and he's fine. He's just living his life. But our other dog, Hank, if you pet him, he just needs more petting. Like you can never pet him enough. And he doesn't care at all about like social distance. Like he just has to be in your face all of the time. And he just needs your attention. And you can never pet him to a point where he's satisfied. And he's really hard to have around."
Mm.
And she said, "I want to be more like Stan, where I can enjoy the petting when it happens, and then I'm fine if it's not happening. Like, I don't want to be someone that's difficult for my kids to have around because I'm so needy." And so I do think that that's interesting, right? If I can loosen up the manual I have, right? I have some list. They're supposed to live near me and they're supposed to stay active in the church and they're supposed to want to come for dinner on Sundays and they're supposed to call me so many times a week and answer my texts within 2 hours. And right, even though we don't think it's not like we write all that manual down,
Oh
but we
yeah, but it's
really
there.
do. We do really have this list of expectations. And when they're not being met, we tend to get needier. And so if I can loosen my grip, like, the age appropriate behavior, like, did I call my mom right back? And can I just let them be who they are and trust that they are going to figure out, right? Whatever it is that they need to figure out. And maybe they need to be doing these things to learn, like, oh, I actually do love to have the gospel in my life. I do see its value, right? It doesn't mean it won't be hard for us, but the work we have to do is to learn how to control our emotions around the choices, right? Like, who do I want to be now? Do I want to get really judgmental and hard on them and passive aggressive? Or do I want to do the work of like, that's not how the Savior lives when people make choices that he doesn't agree with? Like, who was he when there was conflict?
Yeah.
Who was he right? When people made decisions that were contrary to the commandments. Like my goal is to be more like him.
Yeah. Well, and you think about people that you've been around who are more needy, and they are trying to manipulate and control your attention or what it is that they're getting from you, and it's never fun to be around that person. Just like your client with her dogs, it's not, the relationship with them doesn't ever grow. It always seems to have a wedge driven in between them because you don't really enjoy spending time with them.
Yeah. And so we got to figure out like how can I take care of my needs
Mm-hmm.
and build the relationship with my spouse and build the relationship with myself and certainly continue to extend myself to my kids, but mostly from a place of abundance rather
Right.
than because I I can't operate unless I know you think I'm a good mom or unless I feel like my grandkids are succeeding in these ways, right? Like when we put all that pressure of them needing to be a certain way in order for us to feel good about ourselves, we are not very fun to be
No,
around.
no, we're not. Yeah, great point.
So here's my Christmas example. This was a manual I had for Christmas, some unmet expectation. I bought all my kids and my husband these slingshots from Etsy. And they had little felt balls. I saw them online. I think Brooke Romney suggested them as a good stocking stuffer. And I just
Okay.
had this vision in my mind of like they were these cute, colorful felt balls. And I just thought, oh, it'll be fun. It won't hurt anyone. And I looked at all the reviews and it didn't seem like they hurt people, but they mostly bought them for their little kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I bought these for my adult kids. And I was super excited on Christmas Eve. I said to everyone, like, I got you one thing in your stocking I'm really, really excited about. I can't wait for you to open them. Because I just had envisioned them like chasing each other around, and we have a second story with a balcony. And I just had these ideas of them shooting at each other. And I just thought it was going to be so fun. So Christmas morning, and they open the slingshot, and my son pulls the slingshot back at his sister, who's about 4 feet away, and hits her, and it just leaves a mark. Like she's like, "Oh, that's terrible." And so then they're like, "I don't want to have anything to do with those." And I was just feeling so sad because I really was excited. I'd bought
Yeah.
them, a month before, so I'd been thinking about it all month, right? And then I tried using one and they were hard to shoot. Like I was trying to like get them into a bucket because I was thinking maybe there's some other thing, right? I wasn't really ready to let go of my dream yet. So I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure out some way they could like them. And my daughter tried and you couldn't really hit them into this. It was just, they weren't as great as I had thought. And it just was a little bit hard. And then later in the day, I was making dinner and I burned some of the food. And anyway, when I got in bed Christmas night, I just started to cry. And I just thought, oh, I had some expectations. And I think they're higher on Christmas, right?
They
Because we
are,
have
yes.
this idea that it's supposed to be magical and the food's supposed to be good and everyone's supposed to love the presents. And anyway, and I just cried for a little while. My husband's like, it's okay. And anyway, and I just kind of explained the thoughts that were going on in my mind. And the next day, my daughter came to me and said, yesterday was great, but I've been thinking about how it was for you.
Mm.
She said, I knew you were disappointed in the slingshot. She's the one who got hit. And she said, but like, we also couldn't pretend we liked him, right? Like, it didn't seem right to,
Yeah,
like, they could have spent a bunch of time trying to make me feel better. But
right.
is that what I would want them to do? And she said, and then when you burned the stuff, like, dinner was great. But I thought, oh, but it might have been hard for mom. And she said, I read all your posts. And it's been really good for me to realize like this is the first time you've done this too.
Mm.
And you are also learning as you go. Anyway, we had a really sweet conversation that night about a lot of things in her life and things in my life. And it was really connecting to me I don't know. I think there's something sweet about being vulnerable, about like, yeah, sometimes it's a hit and sometimes it's a miss, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay for our kids to know that sometimes we're disappointed and that sometimes things, right, we have unmet expectations and we cry ourselves to sleep.
Or we cry when we're recording a podcast with somebody because their story is tender. And I love your daughter. I've never met her, but I love her. I feel so endeared to her.
I love her too, and I'm really proud of her. But then this week, this is sort of the last thing that I would share, is that I've been thinking a lot about the prodigal son. I read Elder Uchtdorf's talk on it, and I listened to the Faith Matters podcast that was with Thomas McConkie, and he talks about in his book. I think I relate a lot more to the son who stayed.
Yeah.
And I think for those of us who have tried to stay stalwart and true, that sometimes we are frustrated when our kids choose something that we didn't teach them to choose. And I think that we believe somehow we're not getting what we deserved. And so I guess I think the thing that we need to remember is like, we're all prodigals. Like, we didn't earn our children's love, or we didn't earn for them to stay active in the church, or right, because we had this many family home evening lessons, or we went to the temple X amount of times or whatever. Like, the older son was in just as much need of repentance as the younger son. And so when our kids aren't maybe following our manuals, like, we really can look at like, what is God teaching me here? What does he want me to learn? And I believe that all that he has is ours. The son who tried to stay true, the son who left, and they all have their own need to come to themselves, right? The older brother needs to come to himself just as much as the younger brother does. And so I think for those of us in situations where we feel like maybe our kids aren't towing the line, that we just need to check ourselves a little bit better and see, like, what is the Lord teaching me, and where do I need to show more love and try to create connections with them the best that I can, instead of, sequestering myself over into a corner and saying like, there's too much of a gap here, or we don't have enough in common, or they don't respect me, or they would have, you know, stayed with the things that I taught them. I think the more curious we can be, I think our kids are really thinking about things. And as we are curious and listen and respect where they are, one of the things I tell my kids is like, I just hope that no matter what you choose, that you will stay near to Jesus. I think your life will be better with Jesus in your life. And that is why I stay in the gospel, because I feel like it is a perfect place for me to cultivate a relationship with Jesus. And there are things that I don't understand completely and I don't know all the answers to, but I have been able to cultivate a love and a faith for him in this place that has blessed my life. Anyway, so those are just some of the thoughts that I've shared with clients and that I think have helped people who are going through this stage in your life. And I think it will continue to evolve as your kids get older and they start having kids. Like, it's going to keep changing. There's no place that you'll arrive and now everything's fantastic, but we can keep working at it and learning.
And the tools that we learn to do that come with us, right? So the better we can get at them now, the easier it will be on the next round. It's like the cycle that's always going. We just get to keep evolving ourselves, because you're right, we never arrive. We just get to keep using the skills and tools and bring them along with us to the next cycle, the next time. Brooke, this has been a really tender conversation for me today. Thank you for sharing your heart. I think there are so many things for us to learn, and after all, the reason why we're here is to learn to love like our Savior, and to give, not only to give that love, but also to feel that love. And it is in families that we can get so proficient at that, at giving love and receiving love. And these are great tools for us to use, and great thoughts to bring into our lives to do that. So thank you. As I'm still shedding tears over here. We
I
have a
cry.
great
I know.
job.
I feel like I was taught as a life coach that you shouldn't cry.
Oh,
I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad I own my own business so
yep.
I can cry if I want.
Do what we want to. I cry with all of my clients, it feels like. So, Brooke, before we leave, can you share with people where they can find you?
So my website is Brooke, Brooke, Oniki, Oniki. So brookeoniki.com.
Okay.
And you can schedule a free session there. There's a free video about how to drop your manuals with your kids if you want to get that sent to your email. And you can also, just if you do that, then you'd be on my email list, and I send out tips every week. I send out a video tip every week, and also just a blog email that just about some life coachy thing.
Yeah.
And I do
Awesome.
lots of free webinars and things like that. But if you want one-to-one coaching, I do one-to-one coaching with, and you don't have to be an empty nester to come I have lots of clients that aren't in that niche, but you can sign up for a free session there at my website.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brooke. And thank you to all of our listeners who are here today. And we hope we'll see you again next time. Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.